Hello guys, today I have an Avro Lancaster kit for you. This is the Revell 1/72 scale kit, number 04300. And I mention that because this is the newer tooled Revell kit. I say new, it's from 2007, but there is a much older tooled kit in a very similar box, which you should probably try to avoid. I am a fan of the Lancaster and I built it in a number of guises before. The 1/32 scale version, of course, from Hong Kong Models. I've built several Airfix 1/72 scale versions, but I'd never built this Revell kit before. Originally this was a commission build for a customer, but when I was about 80% complete, I unfortunately dropped it onto a concrete floor and smashed off the landing gear. They were absolutely shattered, there was nothing I could do to fix them, and so that meant I had to buy a new kit for the customer to take the landing gear from it. And it also meant that I had to finish this kit with the wheels up. I was particularly interested to see how this kit fared against the Airfix kit because I really liked the Airfix kit except for one thing which I complained about a lot in my recent video on it, which is the warping of the parts. So I built two Airfix Lancasters side by side in two different schemes, and both of them had severely warped fuselages and severely warped bomb bay doors to the point that I could barely get them on. Thankfully that was not a problem with this kit. As you can see here, I've built up the cockpit. For a kit of this scale I find it much easier to build up most of the cockpit before I do any painting. Then once the main colours are down you can brush paint the details. The main colour I used here was good old Tamiya XF71. I didn't go for any pre-shading here because so little of this can be seen through the cockpit canopy. The details were picked out using Vallejo colours. And once that was done, the floor with the cockpit attached to it was put into one side of the fuselage, which I'd also painted. Again, there's that kind of perennial discussion about the interior colour of a Lancaster. Perhaps the nose area, the bomb aimers position should be black here, but I've left it green. Of course, if I'm doing my Lancaster with the wheels up, that would suggest that I need a crew to fly it. 1/72 scale bomber crew figures are surprisingly hard to find. I did manage to find these two here from PJ Productions. Now of course the Lancaster had a crew of 7, but my two figures here are going to have to represent simply the pilot and the flight engineer. Realistically, even if I had enough figures, these figures probably wouldn't fit inside the turrets anyway. That's not a particular criticism of Revell, it's simply the case that if the turrets, for example, are the correct size externally, then in this scale they're going to be significantly smaller on the inside than they really would be because of the thickness of the plastic. So our Lancaster is going to have 2 crew. Although this kit doesn't include the fold down seat for the flight engineer, I will simply glue him into position next to the pilot, because if we put him in the navigator's position, he's lost completely already. The various colours used on the figures were all Vallejo model colour. When I was happy with the painting, I could put the pilots into position, just check that the canopy properly fits within there, and then close up the 2 fuselage halves. You'll also notice here that the bomb bay doors are a single piece. If you want them open, you have to cut down the middle of that piece. The fit here is a little bit funny. The only way I knew I had it the right way is because of the hinge tabs were in the right position, but there's actually a bit of a bump going from the fuselage to the bomb bay, both at the front and the back, which I don't think should be there. As you can see, although there are no gaps, there's a bit of a seam line along the top which needed some sanding. Then I moved on to the engines and the wings. The setup here is very similar to the Airfix kit. Although the Revell kit makes it easier to do the gear up position because the wheel bay doors are a single piece, and in fact if you want to have the wheels down you'll have to cut that piece in half. The same is true, by the way, for the bomb bay. That's the opposite to the Airfix kit, which comes as two separate pieces and you have to make them meet if you want them closed. At this point I started to do something which I kind of regretted later on, to be honest. I've been looking at some reference photos of damaged Lancasters, looking at the kind of damage and holes that were produced by bullets, cannons and flak. And my original idea was have this aircraft in a flying stance with lots of damage, maybe an engine stopped, limping home. So with that in mind I started to drill some holes in the plastic. I think the problem is I didn't really commit to this enough because, of course, to get realistic damage there from the thin skin of the Lancaster, you really need to use foil or something similar to show it sticking out and bent and twisted after the damage. I added this damage to the wings, the tailplane and small parts of the fuselage. With that done, I was able to add the wings to the fuselage and then the final few pieces, including the shroud around the top turret and the clear parts on the top. Those clear parts need adding now because the window on the top of the Lancaster should be circular, but the clear part is provided as a rectangle, so we need to mask off just the circular bit using some liquid mask so we can paint the rest of it. You can see the black painted wing there, which is from the damaged Lancaster originally for my client. I'm fast forwarding ahead a little bit here. I painted the whole Lancaster in Tamiya XF1 flat black. Then I freehanded on AK Real Colours Dark Earth. With the Dark Earth I was going for just a rough pattern of where it should be. Then I used some Tamiya masking sheet to mask off the brown areas so I could paint the green on top. I find that works much better and the green easily covers the brown, so that extra brown is not important. Here's the Lancaster with the green applied. I do really like these AK Real Colour paints. The two paint schemes in this kit are slightly unusual in that they have yellow wingtips and yellow flashes on the tail as identification marks. I painted those directly over the camo scheme, using some masking tape of course, with a piece of toilet paper to protect from overspray. I didn't mind if that yellow was a bit faint and showed the camo colours through, because I figured that's how the real aircraft would be. Next, the whole aircraft was given a coat of VMS gloss varnish in preparation for the decals. You can see there we did get some decals for the instrument panel in the cockpit and the engineer's panel and the radio as well, but I just painted those details instead. The first order of day was the stencils for the walkways. These are quite big decals in that they've got this big clear area in between the two black lines. I made sure to apply lots of Tamiya mark set both below the decal and above it, repeatedly while it was setting, to make sure that I didn't get any silvering from that big clear area. Then it was time for the roundels. The letters and the roundels on the side are one single piece, apart from the red dot in the middle. That does mean you don't have to mess around with aligning the letters, and I didn't need to be worried that this was such a big decal because again it went down very well. You'll also notice here in this shot that I've painted over the windows, as was common with the later models of Lancaster. And in fact in the very late versions the Lancaster had those windows deleted. I then applied a pin wash to the upper surfaces using Abteilung 502 sepia oil paint, thinned with odourless thinner. When it came to cleaning up the excess, rather than removing it, I simply blended it backwards in the direction of airflow over the wings. For the undersides, I didn't do a pin wash. I felt that the light dust pin wash I gave on the all black Hurricane recently wasn't perfect, and I didn't really want to try that on here. And so I didn't really want to try that on here. With 24 hours for the oils to dry, everything was given a coat of VMS matte varnish. At this stage, the damage marks I made earlier weren't particularly noticeable, and I was tempted to just leave them. However, I figured the camera would probably pick them up, or they looked like imperfections in my model, so I did take a metal paint and add small amounts of damage there, but nowhere near as much as in the reference photos. Here I've airbrushed on the exhaust stains. The initial colour was a brown-black mix, followed by a light grey mix on top of that, both very heavily thinned. One thing which was pointed out to me a while ago on one of my models is that the Lancaster only shows exhaust stains on the inner three exhausts. The outermost exhaust, I guess because of the aerodynamics of the wing, doesn't leave a stain on the top of the wing. And you can see that quite clearly in reference photos. I can't remember who pointed that out to me, it was one of my viewers, and very much appreciated, thank you. For the canopy and turret glazing, which the Lancaster has quite a lot of, I decided not to mask and airbrush, but instead freehand brush painted. Because I was using acrylic paints, I could tidy up any excess quite easily using a cocktail stick to gently scrape it away. The various glass parts were then fixed into position using some PVA glue, which shouldn't fog those parts as it dries. Then it was simply a case of drilling a hole in the bottom for one of my 3D printed stands, which I designed in a recent video, and we were ready for some images. Here I'm going to show you 3 sets of final images with the propellers in different ways. Because the Lancaster is on a stand, I wanted to give the impression of it in flight, so sometimes I've left the propellers off. In one case I've left just one propeller on to try to give the impression of an engine that's stopped, while the other 3 remain running, and then in the other case I've just got all 4 propellers in place. So maybe after looking at the images you can tell me in the comments below which you think looks best. Or do you think I should make another video with a blurred propeller effect using some clear acetate or similar?
Okay, keep weaving. A lot of searchlights and fighter flares, Skipper. Yeah, keep on. Okay, boys, okay. Flap, flap. Right, you can... Bomb doors open. Hello, Bombardier. Okay when you are. Bomb doors open. Bomb doors open, Bombardier. Right. Steady. Steady. There's a long time yet. A little bit longer yet. Put in some new screen. Lob them down in the center. Okay, steady. Steady. Right, a little bit. Right. Steady. Bomb's going in a minute. Bomb. Right. 2, 3. Bomb's still going. steady, bud. Hurry up, Jimmy, hold it up. Where is he, rear gunner? Can you see him? Down! 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 He's shot down! He's shot down! Did you shoot him down? Yeah. He's got him, boy, right in the middle! Bloody good! Bloody good! Photograph taken, keep weaving, there's some black coming at me. Okay, don't shout all at once. Alright, photograph taken. Okay, photograph taken. Hello?
There we go guys, that was my in-flight Avro Lancaster in 1/72nd scale from Revell. Overall a really nice kit. Detail wise I feel like it compared well to the Airfix kit, and the fit was much better than the prolonged fight that I had with the Airfix kit due to the warped plastic. So great fun was had all around. You can never go wrong with a Lancaster. I do have 3 more Lancasters in the stash. I've got the Mark II with the alternative engines. I've got 2 Dam Busters variants. One is Airfix and one is Revell, so I will probably build those side by side in the same video. And the reason I've got 2 of them is because I've got a 3D printed kit to convert the Revell one into a Grand Slam Lancaster. So look out for that video sometime in the future. And if you don't want to miss that or any other videos, then please remember to hit subscribe if you haven't already. I want to say thank you to all of you for watching. Special thanks to my YouTube members and Patreon supporters. And until next time, have fun modelling.